To Crazy Cabin Fever Cocktails. I am Tim Knittel of Distilled Living, and we are produced by Fascination Design. Getting a little late start. We started for 8 o'clock, but we were in the studio doing a wonderful virtual event. And so it took us a little bit to switch it back over to do this show tonight. Now we are doing an eggnog because that's what Hillary wanted to drink this evening. So that is what we're going to make happen. And we're using some new riff. I think this is great in an eggnog. It also was the closer in the tasting that I just did. So it worked out well to just leave that out. And I'm using not exactly an original traditional recipe. I'm using a variation, as a lot of your early recipes would involve sherry or rum or something different than bourbon. But I'm going to make this a full measure of bourbon in my drink. Now, this is a shaken drink and does involve raw egg. Now, we get organic eggs, and that's what we're going to use for this tonight. As an interesting note, Jerry Thomas's Bartender's Guide, which is the very first book that we have record of that really compiled all of bartending knowledge in the late 1800s. This is the only cocktail in that book that uses the shaker. So everything else is in there is building glass or uses some sort of stirring vessel or something like that. But this is definitely a shaken cocktail. There's also a very high volume cocktail. So as much as I would like to be able to make one for me, not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to make that as a second pass. So the way we get started on this, like all of our cocktails, is we're going to start with some sugar and sweetness to taste, typically a half to 1 ounce. I'm going to do a split the difference and do about 3/4. So that's going to be 3/4 of my simple. And then note, I don't have any ice in my shaker yet. Using the small side because I always build in the small side. So if I build in this side and I add too much, then I can't actually shake it. So I always build in the small side. Ice is going to be the very last step, and that'll become apparent as we go along. Now, this gets a whole egg. If you're doing the sherry version of this cocktail or a sherry finish, like you use rabbit hole sherry finish for this, which is fantastic, you typically just use the yolk. So this using egg puts this in the category of the flip cocktail. Unlike just using the egg white, which you used to introduce in a sour to give it a particular texture, this is going to give it weight and texture and mouthfeel and flavor. So a lot going on using a whole egg for this. And the whole egg just goes right in there. That's it, whole thing. Don't do anything else with it, just drop it in there. Now some bourbon. It's typically 1.5 ounces. I think I'm going to be a little more generous than that. I'm going to go up to 2. And this calls for half a tumbler of milk. Now, tumblers have gotten bigger and bigger over the years, so it's not a big honking 12-ounce double old-fashioned glass. This is going to be more of a 3 to 4 ounce pour of milk, but it's still a lot. I mean, this is still a major ingredient in this. Now, what I'm going to do, see, I almost committed an error there. Now that I'm thinking this through, I'm actually going to add my ice right now. Not quite to the top, but I need to break up and create a barrier for the milk because I do risk curdling because there's so much high proof bourbon in this. So I need to give it a little barrier. Now I'm going to add about 3 ounces of milk. I want to finish filling this up pretty good with the ice, and now I'm going to shake the crap out of this. There's a whole egg in it. There's going to be a lot more shaking work than most cocktails, like a sour. And there is a mic over my head. So I'm going to step to the side. Much more shaking. This is not a 10 to 12 second shake. I'm going to sit here and do this for a while. I got nothing. I got to shake this thing. See, I'm frosted? No, actually, I'm not quite frosted yet. But even frosting isn't enough. Which means this is going to be hard to open later. I'm beating up the ice a lot, which is fine. It's part of this drink. But getting the egg to completely emulsify properly into this drink is a lot of work. You could cheat this. You could use one of those little egg in a carton things. It'd be a whole lot faster. Wouldn't be as authentic. Probably be as tasty. All right, now I'm getting some texture change. I'm starting to get a little leak, which means I should be ready. So, again, told you this was going to be hard to get apart. I have my beautiful champagne coupe, and I'm just going to pour this to completely fill the glass. I dripped a little down the side. That's okay. I'll wipe that up later. Now, the final and very important ingredient in this is nutmeg. I have a little nub of nutmeg left. I actually have a whole nutmeg. I'm not using the whole nutmeg because the outer casing of the nutmeg is actually mace. That's where that comes from. And that's super strong and intense. And that's not what I want. I want a lot of this there, but I want that complex aromatic. What did I do? There's my microplane. So I'm going to just over the top. And I really want to get kind of the whole surface. But I want just very gently because I want aromatic across the entire thing. Yeah, and that's why I'm continuing to use that little nub. And there is a beautiful bourbon eggnog. Look at that texture. Isn't that beautiful? I'm trying to get a good view of that. I mean, it is I'm trying not to. It is a beautiful, you see a little bit of separation. It's mostly that foam. If you only use the yolk and not the white part, you're going to get a lot of thickness. Leaving the white in there is going to give you more fluffy foam character. So it's just kind of two different styles. You want to try it? And it took, I mean, there's actually a little bit left. I didn't quite have a big enough glass for it, but it's not a full cocktail's worth left over. I got a little sip on this myself. So that is an authentic, great eggnog. Yes, it uses raw egg. You can get pasteurized version if you are so inclined. But it's actually a really, really delicious cold drink, especially this time of year, because it's really got a good volume, viscosity, texture, and beautiful spice character with that nutmeg on top. So cheers. See you next week.